I'm a fan of both of yours since Breaking Upwards, which I saw at South by Southwest, and so I'm really delighted
Oh
to.
my God, that's amazing.
Yep,
Thank you.
I've seen it lots of times too. So
Aw.
Oh, I can't believe you saw it at South by
I,
Southwest 10 years ago. That's
I
incredible.
Oh,
sure did.
gee.
Yep.
Oh, gee, wow.
Yeah. So I'm gonna let May get us started.
Okay.
Hi, I'll just give maybe the audience a bit of an overview of the collaborations, but one of your producers on Lola versus Michael London remarked that when people work with you, they're inside of your relationship. And watching your earlier collaborations, I witnessed characters that struggle with silence and being alone, wrangling with failure and self-doubt. They're comfortable both figuratively and literally sporting their undergarments for the world to see. And characters are something of like leaking Brita filters for everything that bubbles to the surface. And you're both mining the intimate terrain of your partnership for your art. And in how it ends, the audience is now privy to Zoe's relationship with her younger tomboy version that's been outed by the comet. So, how did the pandemic influence the decision to collaborate on a narrative that excised a version of Daryl on screen?
I'll let Zoe take that one. Take it away, Zoe.
I mean, I think that the pandemic forced us both individually to be sort of facing our most vulnerable selves. And oh,
I'm gonna take the dog into the frame because she's running around chewing things. This is Lula.
Yeah. And I think, so I think like it did, even though we were trapped in a house together, I think the work that we were doing wasn't really necessarily, I think the thing that we were trying to process was more an individual journey, and that sort of inner child work. And so I think, yeah, if the question is why Daryl was excluded from this on screen, well, I think that Daryl doesn't.
I'm happy to be
He doesn't want to act
behind the camera.
But I think that it was, yeah, like that Kaylee, who plays my younger self in the film, and I had just collaborated on the Craft Legacy. She was the star of it. And so we had both an intimate working relationship and had become close friends, and she had become close with Daryl through that as well. And so I think it was exciting for us to collaborate again on screen, Kaylee and I, since we had never acted together. I'd only directed her. And that we were, the three of us, sort of dealing with very similar quandaries around how to speak to our inner children at this really singular moment in all of our lives where, the circumstances were just so sort of harrowing. And how could we do that with a certain amount of levity while not denying sort of the impact of where we were at in the world?
So does that mean that the writing of the film happened during the pandemic as well as the shooting?
Yes, we conceived of the film a few months after pandemic started. The first couple months were spent feeling super depressed and worried and confused about what the state of the world was looking like and where it was headed. And we started to just have lots of conversations about ourselves, and we were doing a lot of therapy to try and work through it, and so much introspection, and forced, to look inward and be inside, literally and figuratively. So we, got to a point where we just thought it would be cathartic, and we were itching to get back to doing something creatively. And it decided to embark on this journey, which was really nice to have as something to do during pandemic, in addition to all of the other work.
Yeah. Okay. May, go ahead.
How it ends feels like an astral projection or something, like an out-of-body experience of Zoe's gaze. She's kind of impossibly crisscrossing Los Angeles County in socks and heeled sandals, and her final 24 hours feel surrealistically expansive. And I found myself wondering if Mandy had slipped her some ketamine, or if she had smoked Nick Kroll's character's DMT at the beginning of the film, which, by the way, also, speaking to that, you don't shy away from giving recreational drugs cameo roles in the narratives.
We're big fans. We're big fans. We like to shout out recreational drugs as often as we can.
But the ending of the film, it's almost as if it's represented by a punctuation mark, like the period, a bold period. And she's at peace with herself. She's laid her doubts to rest. She's ostensibly sober. She's comfortable being in the silence of the now and at one with the unknown hurtling towards her. And I wonder if this symbolizes a permanent breakup with some of the reoccurring narrative themes in your film collaborations. What are we to make of this ending?
These are deep questions, May. And we've done some interviews and we're like, we've got them down. And these ones, you're throwing us some real like right hooks.
They're good.
And I applaud you. Daryl, what do you think?
I'll let you start.
Well, is my hair weird? Well, I guess like, wait, will you reframe the question at the end of like the beautiful dissertation that you gave?
Yeah, for at least for the punctuation mark of my perception of the ending being a period, what are we to make of this particular ending, the message, in relation to what might be your next creative incarnation?
I see. You know, I don't know. I think that when
it's definitely not the end.
This film is like, I think for both of us, this film was really about like the process more than the product. And I think we can both be very product oriented, especially at a certain stage in both of our filmmaking careers together and individually. It's hard not to let that creep in the creative process. And I think what was really freeing about this was that we weren't thinking about like what it meant for our careers, or what it was saying, or what or how it would even be perceived. I think it was really just like there was a sort of purity in the catharsis of it, and that it was sort of experimental in nature, and we really didn't know what it was going to become. It just sort of felt necessary to us as artists to do. I don't know. Do you want to add something?
Nope.
But you know, I mean, it was a milestone because it was the first time that Daryl and I directed together. We had written together and produced together and acted together, but this was the first time we had done that. So that was a new step.
I wanted to ask you about your decision to have everyone face the end of the world with such calm. Everybody was so chill about it, and I thought that was such an unexpected response when, you know, the people could just walk down the street and just so casually discuss, you know, what they were about to face. What was going on with that?
We've, I think, seen so many films that are like such like, you know, apocalyptic doom and gloom, you know, and like chaotic, frenzied like mayhem. So that's not our style. And I think like the film in many ways was kind of mirroring the emotional state and like wavelength that we were on at that particular moment, which was just like a lot of days of tedium and sitting inside. It was early in the pandemic when we conceived of it. So, I mean, there was a lot of chaos internally as well, and also externally as continued throughout the pandemic. But I guess in some ways, like, we were all forced this year to really like have to sit still and look at our problems, you know, societally, systemically, internally, personally, sociopolitically, in so many ways. And so, you know, this being the last day on Earth, we thought it would be kind of fun if it was just a little bit of a quieter, more introspective look at how people come to the end and have to kind of resign themselves to their circumstances. So I guess that's kind of where the Zen-like quality came from.
Yeah, had a beautiful effect, for sure.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I lived in LA for about a decade, and I was so shocked to see, you know, not only your filming locations, but the fact, of course, that they were empty due to the pandemic. And I know that you began your working relationship in New York, and I wondered if you felt like you might have been able to make this film in New York during the pandemic, or if LA had to be the spot for this.
I think it would have been harder for it to feel fully empty in New York, and maybe not as original also, just because like that movie I Am Legend, and there's probably been others that are like bare apocalyptic feeling New Yorks. But I think there's something about walking through the streets of LA, which are usually filled with cars, that definitely has a more surreal and eerie effect. So I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean,
New York, like even in the pandemic, is still a bustling cityscape.
Yeah.
And I think what was like for both of us, when we did go out in our cars in LA in quarantine, it was so surreal to see so few cars out on the street. And I think we wanted this to serve as a sort of time capsule of this moment that had never existed before, and who, you know, hopefully won't exist again, where there's this sort of desolate quality to Los Angeles.
Is that all contained in one area, one neighborhood? It seemed like it was.
No, it was not. It was quite sprawling actually, because you know we shot down in Malibu on the beach, and then we were kind of in the Hollywood Hills and a bit in the Valley, and then in Silver Lake. It's not a real walkable.
You traced the real route, you wouldn't walk
There's
it.
definitely some creative liberties we took there, but you could make the argument that they might have hitched on the back of a truck here or there, perhaps, or a bicycle.
Or the younger self can fly. You don't see it.
That's true.
Yeah.
No rules.
There might be teleportation qualities.
Need of ketamine.
On ketamine, anything is possible, as Whitney Cummings, you know, made clear.
So
Right.
how did you choose the cast? How did they participate in this film?
We are just very lucky to be friends with super talented people and to have worked with a lot of these people before. And so, yeah, we just called them and because it was fairly early in quarantine, for many of them, this was their first time on camera.
And they each got paid $1 million. So that helps.
Right. The rate was big. But yeah, I think because it was so many of their first time on camera, like they were really interesting conversations to have, because it's already like a conversation to call a friend and be like, do you want to do a movie? You know, like there's a lot of questions that have to be asked, but there were so many more questions that had to be asked in this circumstance. And there was like a lot of trepidation from many of them about not even like the safety of it, but more about whether or not they'd be able to show up as performers from the emotional places that they were in. And especially in a comedy, you know, like, can we be funny right now? And can we access that part of ourselves? And I think for Daryl and I, we were really clear.
We were like, yes, you can. Meet us at 9 a.m. tomorrow.
No, but we were clear that like they could show up in whatever emotional state they were in. And that was the beauty of this project, sort of paralleling the quarantine and the pandemic, was that that we could just be free to kind of be wherever we were.
Yeah, because the script was half written out fully. Like Zoe's scenes with Kaylee were all fully written, and scenes like with Helen, like the scene with Helen Hunt and Bradley Whitford, were also written. But a lot of other scenes were based off of like a structured outline with specific story and character beats that we wanted them to hit. And so they were able to play within this framework that Zoe and I created. And that was really liberating for, I think, a lot of the actors to be able to bring, like what Zoe's talking about, you know, themselves in whatever place that they were meeting us at, you know, into their characters and into the scenes, which made it feel loose and fluid, which was kind of the experience that we were trying to create, so that it felt really intimate and authentic at the same time.
So the Olivia Wilde scene, I have to know how that went down. How fun, I mean, how it was that one of those that you're speaking of?
Yeah, that was a pretty structured outline of that scene, and there was even like you know, some dialogue written that we wanted to hit, but yeah, it was improvised, and it was the most fun thing ever.
It was the first time that Olivia had stepped foot outside her house, she had said, and like first time she was doing something. And so it was like very surreal seeing her, and for her to like come to the location, and then like her and Zoe are just pure magic. I was like,
Aww.
Can we just make another movie just starring you two? Because they're just so incredible together and their chemistry is unbelievable. And we had like 20-minute takes with them where I just like kept the camera rolling because it was just too funny to not let them just riff with each other. And the stuff they were coming up with was just priceless. Like there's so many like amazing moments actually on the cutting room floor that we couldn't even put in.
But it was,
Yep.
No, I mean, because we hadn't, like, it was Olivia's first time leaving her house, and it was sort of my first time hanging with a friend, in that way, like that I hadn't seen in a while, and so like there was also that sort of excitement,
Charge.
the charge of like, oh my god, we get to talk to somebody.
I watched that scene. I just had to go and watch it 3 times, and I screamed. And I have to also say that I live alone, so I have not been laughing like for a year, you know, almost a year. Because when you're alone, you just don't laugh out loud, even when you watch something funny. It's not the same, you know, when you're with other people.
Yeah.
You know, laughter is just kind of contagious, or you don't maybe perform it for other people, but you kind of do.
Yeah,
it makes more sense to share a laugh. But I laughed out loud so many times in this movie, and that just doesn't happen often, so I thank you for that.
thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
And also I have to say that Zoe, I think you were so brilliant at drama and comedy together on a dime, you know, and back and forth. And I've always related to that so much when I first saw you in Breaking Upwards. I love how you do that. It's so poignant and powerful. So
Thank you so much. That means so much to me.
well, I feel like I'm watching a real person, like a really funny person who feels things deeply. So yeah.
I can attest that is true in real life as well. She is very funny and she feels a lot of things.
Very deeply.
I do want to also reiterate that it was so meaningful to have a film in Sundance that it has levity, because I think so many people really need that right now. There are a lot of important stories to tell in the world, but you told this with some healing vibes that I appreciated. So thank you again.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Everyone needs a little TLC, you know, right now. Like we're living in like, yeah, such a crazy time still, and so much PTSD from the last 4 years, and in general, just with everything this year, it's been intense. So we I think really wanted to laugh as well as cry. And yeah, it's important to try and find the light in the dark.
Yeah, you made a great film for this moment. So
Mm.
thank you for sharing it with us, and thanks
Of
for talking with
course.
us.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Have
Thank
a
you
great
so much.
festival. Sure. And I hope to see you again. Come through Nashville sometime with your next film, hopefully.
Oh, we would love
Yeah, that would be
to.
amazing. We'd love to. Thank you.
Okay. Bye y'all. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much.